Feel the love tonight.
I'll call to order the Park Board meeting, Brainerd, Minnesota, July 27th, 2021, 4 o'clock p.m., City Hall Council Chambers. As a matter of order, all members are here, so roll call is not necessary. Will someone lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Don't make me pick anybody.
I will.
All right, Mr. Sandy, thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Sandy. Before the approval of our agenda, we have to swear in for life, well, not quite life, but we have to swear in a new member, Andrew Shipe, and that will be administered by Mr. Sandy. Please, Mr. Sandy.
You're getting swore at.
You can just raise your right hand, Andrew, and repeat after me. I, Andrew Shipe, do solemnly swear
I, Andrew Shipe, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Parks and Recreation Board
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of the Parks and Recreation Board
of the City of Brainerd, Minnesota, to the best of my judgment and ability.
of the City of Brainerd, Minnesota, to the best of my judgment.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right?
Thank you. Welcome aboard. All right, our first order of business here, number 5. I'm looking for an approval or any modifications, additions, substitutions to the agenda. Anybody have anything? Hearing none, I'll be looking for a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the agenda and a second by
Second.
Ms. Schaefer. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We have an agenda. Consent calendar. Notice to the public, all matters listed are considered routine by the board and will be enacted on by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the board votes on the motion. This includes items 6A, approval of minutes, B, approval of the disbursements, C, the financial reports.
I do have one question.
Please, Ms. Schaefer.
I was just curious, the flagpole, that was $2,508. Is that at Memorial Park? I was just curious where that was.
That would be at Gregory Park.
Okay.
The old flagpole that was by the fountain was
Okay.
in disrepair, so we bought a new flagpole for that.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, anything else?
No.
Hearing none, I don't think I need a motion on that, so, very good. All right, our first item.
Mr. Chair, you
yes.
do for the consent
Oh,
calendar.
consent calendar, yes, so I need a motion for the approval on the consent calendar, sorry. We have a motion by Mr. Rushmeyer. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a second by Mr. Boder. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have a consent calendar. Item number 7 is a presentation of the sesquicentennial event. Jesse, please.
Thank you. Hello,
Thank you.
Park Board. I'm excited to share with you our sesquicentennial event, which will act as a bookend for the week of September 18th through the 25th. And so this event will be at Gregory Park from 2 to 4 on the 25th, and it's going to be a very family-oriented event. And you can see on the list in the item there, we have some bouncy houses that will be pending upon council approval. We have partnership with the Brainerd Public Schools to have a makerspace, which will be kind of just a area where kids can be interactive with kind of the fun technology that they have over at Forest View. Additionally, the high school basketball athletes will run some like fun pickup games of lightning and horse. The pickleball league will do some tutorials for pickleball, and the other set of courts, people who already know how to play can just have a ball doing that themselves. And then we have some performances, including the Paul Bunyan musical, which will be debuting in October. They have 2 songs that they'd like to kind of share with the community through this week about axe dancing as the lumberjacks and how little kids know, or how Paul Bunyan knows little kids' names, and they'll be around in costume throughout the event as well. One change is today Outback Trail Rides did bow out, but we did ask another kind of horse business around if they would be willing to do trail rides around Gregory. And there'll be some other like low-key activities such as coloring that are Brainerd themed with word searches and crosswords and some chalk. And then the city of Brainerd will also have kind of an info booth about the parks, about the history of Brainerd, and like an activity as a keepsake after this Sesquicentennial Week. I'd love to hear any thoughts you guys have, and thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you,
Well done.
Jesse.
A lot of work, well done.
That is a lot of work, yes.
Fun work.
Comments? Anyone?
The horse rides is a pending event?
As of now, the people that we were working with and have done a park event in the past, they just don't have the manpower this year to do this event, but we are, today we reached out to another horse business in town.
Great. Is this already on the agenda for the park? So, it's already reserved?
Scheduled?
It is reserved, yeah.
Yeah, not agenda, thank you, thank you.
So those are fun, giant ladder games and Jenga. So that's from Party Time has those, like the really big ones.
They did, yeah. It's kind of a fun, like Paul Bunyan twist on it. And so, a lot of these activities like are kid-oriented, but like the giant ladder golf and yardsies can have like the adults having some fun as well.
Cool. Have you guys thought of like a photo booth opportunity or anything? Like creating something that, like a backdrop, and then holding up silly little things. People could snap photos, tag City of Brainerd, tag your event, something like that. That could be set up in the park.
We haven't. I really do like that idea, though.
Could be kind of fun. People love photo ops. Get it on social media.
True. Great marketing, right? All wrapped in it, too.
I don't know, just an idea. But otherwise, I think it sounds cool.
Anybody else?
Sounds good. Is there a height and weight limit for the bouncy house?
Oh, jeez.
Not that they told me, so you are free to go.
No, but there is an age limit, so you're out. I have a question. What is there anything that we can do to help you? Do you have any roadblocks in front of you right now that the park board might be able to help you with? Is there anything we can do to help you grow this event? I didn't mean to
Just
put you on the spot.
I mean, support for sure, especially when we go to council for the approval of the funds. Otherwise, I mean, I'm happy to take any ideas or resources or anything, but off the top of my head, just, your support.
Great, awesome. So staff, go ahead,
Is this
Mr. Rushmeyer.
Is this that whole week? That
Mhm.
There was, and then there was an event that we were talking about doing the Memorial Park.
Yep, we were
as well?
talking about it, yep. Mhm.
So the whole week, yes, does have activities through other local organizations. The airport, I think, has the kickoff event on the 18th, and then the Here for Good Market will be happening, as well as some chamber events. And yeah, each day has a really cool Brainerd-oriented activity.
Well done.
All right, thank you.
Great. So staff is looking for the park board to show solidarity and support for this project. Keep in mind that does include a small amount of money, $825 is in tow here. So if there's no further discussion, I'd be looking for a motion to one direction or another on this.
I just want to clarify, it says recommending to council to use $825. Is that the city or is that us?
Council needs to approve this, correct, Mr. Sandy?
Yeah, so it'll be out of the council special projects fund, so it was steered to be kind of a city event, our contribution to this sesquicentennial.
Awesome, that's the only question I have.
Well,
All right.
I would certainly make a motion to approve my end of it, and I would guess most of the people follow along with me, but, and especially the 825 from the city council, you bet, go get it.
I'll take that as motion. Thank you, Mr. Boder. Do we have a second?
Second, Shipe.
Yeah, we got a second by Shipe. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll vote here. All those in favor of us continuing to show our support for this event presented by Jesse, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Item number 8, off to unfinished business. 8A is to approve the KEAT cancellation policy. Ms. Kaufman, please.
Jesse, you have to stay for this stuff if you don't want to.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. In front of you, we just are proposing, it's kind of a red line version of what we're modifying and adding to the high temperatures portion of our weather policy. I'm seeking for you to approve what is in front of you.
Very good, thank you. Did everybody read this? Does anybody have any questions? If you didn't read it, take a chance, or take a moment to read through it, but.
Is this getting to be pretty popular in other cities as well? I would guess. I mean, do you even know? I mean,
I actually stole a lot of this verbiage from a YMCA.
nice. Way to be a thief. Well done.
Yep.
And, you know, I mean, it's 105, the heat index, you have it listed as 105. I mean, that's getting up there, and, you know, so it's not like we're at 95 or 90, or, I mean, it's approaching an area where it could be an issue for someone, and to me, I think it looks fine. I think your verbiage is fine. I think you have bases covered.
Well, Katie stepped up last week and called off Tuesday night because it was unruly hot again. I didn't hear any complaints about it at all. So.
Oh yeah, that was due to air quality though.
Yeah, but same thing.
There was a couple complaints,
Whether
but
it
a lot
wasn't
of people
hot, it was just
understood.
That
Yeah.
heavy, thick air, and no one complained about it at all that I heard of. So.
Mr. Sandy, please.
And I will say, we did receive a phone call from a resident that was in support of this. It was in the Brainerd Dispatch, and she's a nurse, a tenured nurse at the hospital, and you know, she said they get a lot of heat-related illness when things get above 100 degrees, and it's something she was very in support of, and she made that very well known. So.
Thank you, Mr. Sandy.
I had a question.
Yes, please.
So Katie, when it talks about the water fountains, are you, the program coordinator, having to call people to tell them to bring water? Is that what that means?
Yeah, So in the event that like a water fountain is not working,
Oh,
we
okay.
need to make sure there's water available
Oh,
for.
sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I just was trying to think of a different way, so you didn't have to call everyone but if it's only if it's broken, because all the parks have water fountains or water available.
And if there's no
Okay.
water available, the program like for example, the YMCA at JC's, maybe
Right.
when we were reinstalling that new water fountain over there, they didn't have water, so they were providing water bottles for the kids.
Okay, so that
on
you're
hot
just
days.
stating that there'll be water if it's hot.
Yeah.
If it's not, okay, great.
And it's very vague, and I think that's probably a
Good thing,
for that
yeah.
to be vague versus saying coordinator needs to physically make phone calls, or, I mean, it could be something you could put on social media, or say, check social media or check our site to determine. I'm assuming that's why it's vague, and I think that's probably a good thing.
Very good. Any other comments? All right, staff is looking for us to approve the changes to the policy, or adopt these changes.
I'll make that motion. I think you did good work.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for drafting this up, making this easy. We have a motion by Mr. Rushmeyer to adopt.
I can second that.
We have a second by Ms. Schaefer. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, we have a policy. Thank you. Item 8B, this is the review of Memorial Park construction. The approve professional service contract amendment for testing services and approve change order number 3. Take it away, Mr. Sandy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So tonight we have Chris Sonmore here to give us an update. In your packet, you'll see the pay voucher number 3, what is referenced as change order 3, and a estimate of testing services, both already performed and what is anticipated to be kind of done to finish the project. Just a quick note with the testing services, that was never really discussed as part of the contract with WSB, and it is something that we do to ensure material quantities are what they need to be on site. And so their professional services agreement did not include that, and we were going to actually go out and contract with someone else. At that time, we decided that it was probably easiest if WSB just performed those on site, being that they're already the project manager and someone is already out there. Otherwise, we would typically go out to another firm like a Braun Intertech or someone to do that for us. Being that WSB was already the project manager on site, we just authorized them to move forward and perform the testing services that were needed to verify the products we were receiving are actually what's specified. So I let Chris take it away from there.
Thank you, Mr. Sonmore, please.
Yeah, just to add on a little bit, I don't know if you remember, we did include, as optional additional services in our proposals, and I think that total amount was, the way the RFP was kind of two different phases, so I think we had 10,000 total in there, but I'm just requesting, up to 7,500 right now, which should cover us, and I'm optimistic we'll come in underneath that, so we're going to bill you for what we use at that budget number, but so I'm not asking for that whole 10,000 that we had in that original proposal. So, and a lot of those items too, they're building code specific items that on the the foundation and some of those things that are required, I believe, per the building inspector in town here too. So.
All right, perfect.
If there's any other questions?
Any
on that
questions
item?
for Mr. Sandy or Mr. Sonmore at this point? I just want to clarify one thing. The 10,000 that we had in there was in the proposed budget, correct? Or this is in addition to the proposed budget?
We had that in our proposal as an optional service, but that was not.
It was a line item that was in, though, correct?
But it was not included in our fee that was in the contract amount that you had with us.
Yeah, correct. It was in the total amount, but it just wasn't listed under your services that you were providing. We had $10,000 listed in there. Was it 10,000? I believe it was 10,000 we had in there.
Yeah, I mean,
For testing.
It's something that we would either contract with a different entity to make sure that we cover that end of it. And so-
Yeah, understood. I guess what I'm driving at here is the 10,000 is not in addition to the total of our accepted amount. It was already included in there. The service provider was just not listed, right? It was listed as a separate provider.
The overall engineering budget generally includes a
Right.
professional services for testing. It's just who do we select, and being that WSB was on site and they had that listed a fee as an additional service they could provide, instead of going out to a Braun Intertech or someone for
Right.
those services, it was easiest just to select
Understood.
WSB for that.
Thank you. I was just clarifying that there was a placeholder for the money in the original proposed budget.
And I guess I'll add one thing on to that too. The guy we have on site, he's, like Paul mentioned, if we're, using Braun Intertech or somebody, there's trip charges, we're not charging for. He's already out there doing the work, so he's just doing the testing when he's there. It's really just the lab work that you guys are paying for on this stuff. So.
Right. Thank you. Any further questions? Mr. Scheid, please.
Oh, I see some trip charges still in the estimate.
Yeah, this was the estimate back from the proposal that was done a year ago. So, again, Matt is on site, monitoring that stuff, and he's not full-time out there, but if there's ever a concrete report, he's there. We're not billing those like a trip charge or anything in addition, since he's already out there. So all the work he's doing in the field, it's just within the time that he's already there, and it's just the lab work that's being done, that's being billed really at this point, so.
Awesome. Okay, that makes sense.
Great. It's looking great out there, by the way. I was just out there a few hours ago. Concrete's poured, yep. Playground equipment is going to start being placed in the next week or so, week and a half?
Splash pad.
Splash pad? Splash pad
Yep.
fixtures. Awesome.
Yeah, it's going good out there. It's the only thing we're a little bit nervous on is the door frames, because we're still waiting on those. And last week they said it was going to be this week, and now they're saying next week. And you all know how it is with materials these days, and the lead time is killing a lot of people, but it will go fast once we get those. But the site work, I would guess, it'd be pretty well wrapped up in the next couple weeks here, I think. So.
Great.
And the boards, I'm probably going to push those off a week, so they probably would be like the 9th, I think, the week after next, on the board install. So.
All right, well, if there's no further comments, staff is looking for an approval of the professional services amendment along with approval of the change order number 3.
Is the pay voucher a separate item, or is that part of this?
That's included in our bills already.
Okay, so that's fine.
Yep,
Okay.
just really the change order, and if you guys
Okay.
need any explanation on that, Chris can provide that too.
Yeah, so this is something that just kind of came up during the permit review. This is a request that Darren had made on just switching out one of the sinks in there, and so they had an ad of $552 on that.
This is obviously, comes out of the contingency or something like that, yes?
Yep.
So this is a different faucet, different,
Yeah, it's a different sink. I think it was just trying to remember what the original was. I think it was just more of the number of holes for the faucet and the lab there.
$52 more than above and
Yes.
beyond what the original was
Yep.
going to be?
Yep.
So it's the whole sink or just a faucet?
I believe this was more just the sink and the top, not necessarily the
It
faucet.
had to deal with the push button on the sink for ADA, didn't it? Isn't that what?
I think that was part of it.
It was the push button sink things for ADA purposes, and so I think that was the reason it got switched out.
Yes, we would be looking for, staff is asking for approval on, do you want this in one motion, the professional services amendment and the change order, or do you want these separate?
You can do them separate.
All right, very good. We'll look for, first, the professional services amendment.
Make a motion to approve that.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Ms. Schaefer and a second by Mr. Boder. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, we have an approval of the professional services amendment. And now we'll look at our change order for $552, I believe it was, sorry. $552 for the sink as recommended by staff.
Move to approve the change order.
We have a move to approve by Mr. Scheib
I can second that.
and a second by Ms. Schaefer. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll vote by, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. And I got approval on that as well. Thank you for the update. Thank you for your work on this.
Yeah, I guess I'll just add one thing to it. Right now, it looks like, we're on schedule, if not maybe a little bit ahead here. So, like I mentioned, those door frames are the only thing that don't concern me yet, but in another week or two they might, but I think they'll move pretty quick once they get them, so.
That's sad on one thing like that could throw a wrench into, or like.
It is, because it's holding up the sheetrock and they can't finish the siding outside until all that stuff, those things are
Something you
in,
never think
so,
of.
yeah. So, all right, thank you.
All right, very good. On to new business. First on the list is item 9A. This is the approve the request for proposals for Mississippi Landing Trailhead. This was listed as Mr. Chansky, but I'm thinking this will be you, Mr. Sandy.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So on to our next park. On July 19th, the City Council authorized the Park Board to manage the Mississippi Landing Trailhead Park project. So just a little history, the city was awarded $2.85 million from LCCMR to construct the Mississippi Landing Trailhead Park project. This was a design and a conceptual design that was produced by the Mississippi Riverfront Committee. And since then, we've been funded for their conceptual layout, which we will attach to the, I don't know if we attached that to this RFP, which I apologize if we didn't. But anyways, once we got this, once you guys were designated as a managing entity, me and David and Jennifer sat down and put our heads together to get this RFP drafted. It's very similar to what we had for Memorial Park. We have a timeline in there, and as far as what we're expecting for design and engineering, and hopefully to be in the ground next spring. In the agenda request, you'll see our schedule for how we're going to kind of roll this thing out. So hopefully we can issue the RFP on Wednesday, which would be tomorrow. We would have a proposal submittal in mid-August or late August. we would have what we call a project management team review, and that's another discussion item we'll have once we kind of talk about this RFP, and a recommendation of a firm the week of August 30th. We may interview if needed of prospective firms. We left that as an option. And then we'll have a firm recommended and selected by Park Board hopefully on September 7th. That way we can get this project underway, get survey and design services going, so that we can hopefully be in the ground in April or May next year. So really what we're looking for tonight is approval of the RFP document itself that was created and can be seen in your packet. And then from there, we're going to need to talk about, the city council also authorized what we're calling a project management team type of structure that would provide recommendations to the park board, more of your technical team, which would include city staff, our selected engineer consultant, 2 members of the riverfront committee, 2 members of the park board, and 1 city council member. So that's what was kind of talked about at the city council meeting from the project management team perspective. And so after you guys review this and subsequently approve it, we would need 2 members of the park board to sit on that project management team also. With that, I'll take any
Fantastic.
questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
When would these meetings begin, do you think?
So once we would have the first meeting before we to review proposal content with just the members, the elected members, like the Riverfront Committee, 2 Park Board members, City Council, and staff. We would review that as a team, and then we would come with a recommendation to the Park Board to select a consultant. After that, we would most likely meet the week before each Park Board meeting to go over progress, any outstanding decisions or kind of critical path things that need to be decided on, and continue feeding the park board information each month as this process moves along. Those recommendations coming directly from this PMT to the park board, so we keep it this tight of a timeline is going to be very important that we keep on track and make sure that we have buy-in from both city council, park board, and the riverfront, and also having that technical side with the consultants and engineers to make sure that they're getting the information they need in a timely manner so that the project doesn't get derailed by getting down too far into the weeds or whatever that is. It's a pretty tight design timeline that if we want this in the ground next year, we're going to have to stick to it. So we're thinking the week before each park board meeting, we'll have a PMT meeting.
This RFP needs to be presented tomorrow, I assume?
Yeah, that's the schedule that we have, just to give us the most amount of time that we can possibly garner for this process. And give the consultant 30 days to respond.
Well, I would make that motion to approve the RFP, and then unfortunately, I'm kicking off my travel season, so I would do a disservice to be involved with a volunteer for that, but just to be, I'd be happy to do it, but I'm not gonna be here that often.
Kicking off your travel season.
Well, yeah.
You're always in travel.
Hang on a second. We got a motion to approve, or we got a motion to approve here. So before we start the discussion, let's see if we can get through this motion. I have some discussion points as well, so. Yes, please. Oh, sorry, Mr. Rushmeyer.
I'm just looking at the schedule and bids opening end of April to be awarded by mid-May, and then construction start by the end of May. Is that enough time? Do we want to get bids out just a little earlier than that? And I'm just asking the question. It seems like a lot into a short time, and I know it's, is that gonna give companies time to propose a good bid? I'm just.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair, we have let projects late like this before. It really depends on how busy contractors are that year. And from this example, the chair that I sit in with the engineering department, we're typically in this kind of time frame. If we can get bids out, the sooner the better. Obviously, a lot of it'll depend on how this process, the design process, is moving along. Certainly, if we can expedite the process and move through our park board meetings and decision-making process faster, I don't think we're locked into that date. You know, as the process moves with the consultant, I think we can make modifications to that and maybe even bump up that time frame if we're comfortable getting things out sooner. So it's not uncommon for us to issue bids that late in the year. We've even done it in June and July on some of our late season projects that are bigger, like this one would be. But I don't, you know, it's hard to say right now with my crystal ball. But like I said, if we can bump it up, we will as we move through the process. I just want to make sure we give them the most amount of time possible to have an accurate and good design, specifications and everything, and give them that timeline. That's kind of our drop dead date. If we can bump it up, that's just better. So.
And I guess where I'm going with this is that project management team, should they be pushed, you know, I see mid-September through mid-February, is it to our advantage to get these proposals out to people earlier? For instance, if they have other stuff bid and been awarded other projects, I'm talking about the companies that would receive the bids, you know, are they gonna bid this at a higher price simply because they already know what their workload is, and just the sooner, the earlier, because it was mid-September through February, and I know we don't wanna rush this, but in the same breath, would it behoove us to have, if we get in, let's say we get into December, early January, and say, we still have a lot of work to do here, okay, let's start moving these, let's start doing this weekly, because it's going to be to our advantage financially, perhaps, to push us along in the project management team.
Yeah, I think that'll definitely, as we get deep into the design, I think those meeting times will get more frequent as the engineers need more direction from that group. I can foresee twice a month, 3 times a month in some circumstances. So, you know, just be aware that as we get closer to that final design standpoint and we're selecting, you know, even just simple stuff like, you know, fixtures, you know, that kind of stuff, that more frequently is going to come about through that process as we get further down the road.
Further, I'm going to allow the questions to continue here. We do have a motion hanging there, but I think everyone knows what it is. So if we've got discussion continuing, I think we should continue with this. I've got a couple of questions if anyone else has anything first.
The one thing that kind of jumped out to me with the proposal requirements was, right, we have this large fund to build the park, but I don't want to end up with a park that's very expensive to maintain, or that ends up being really cool, but then, oh, it's $200,000 a year to do maintenance on this exotic plant, right? Whatever things may happen. So I would maybe be interested in seeing something in the proposal about ways they've designed the park to be more maintainable or kind of easier for us to keep up and keep it in a good place.
Great point. Thank you, Mr. Scheib. Any other comments here? Hit it, Mr. Bedell.
Yeah, I'll jump in, just because we have a new park board member and he needs to hear all of my comments regurgitated. This is a great proposal, or this is a great opportunity for us to create a space that people can use down by the Mississippi River. My continued concern with this project is that we are going to be, even in this listing of potential scopes of the project, we have listed a bathroom, which really irritates me, mainly because if you take a look at that East River Road, there are an excessive amount of bathrooms on that area. You have not heard me say this. Everyone else has heard me say this 1,000 times. It behooves us as a public entity to be partnering with other public entities to try and figure out ways to cut our cost in long-term maintenance, but also just in usage. If there's a bathroom across the road, we should be figuring out ways to use the bathroom across the road. I've heard from this group that they're interested in doing that, but I want to continue to say this over and over and over again so that when we get to the point, and I'm continuing to get louder and louder and louder about this, it's super important for us to make sure that the dollars being spent on these projects are putting us in a position where we're not just looking at ourselves, but we're looking at the community as a whole, and public entities, including the school district, including the county, are extremely important because those dollars are also being spent. So I just want to reiterate my distaste for another bathroom. Put up porta potties, I don't care, do whatever you got to do, but spend the money on trees, spend the money on shade, spend the money on creating spaces that people want to be, and not buildings, 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 which is what we tend to continually do, and then we continually have to keep spending the money to maintain these buildings, buildings, buildings.
Thank you, Dave. Any other comments?
Are these concerns more of what we're just looking for a passing of the RFP amount, not the actual RFP, correct?
Basically, what the motion is staff is looking for us to approve the RFP for the engineering and design services only at this point.
Correct, that was kind of my motion, but the other conversations that are going on is more for that committee that's going to be put together, I would assume, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's some discussion that needs to continue here as well. So at this point, we could either look for a second on this motion, we could suspend your motion and banter back and forth here for a little while, pick it back up. We could do a couple different things here, but I think there is some more discussion that needs to take place. So at this point, I would like one of two things to happen. I would like either for somebody to second this motion and send the RFP through, or I would like for no one to second this, and then we'll let it tumble, and then we'll pick up the discussion, and we could come back and make a secondary motion if we wanted to.
I would say if there's more discussion, let's have more discussion. This motion can sit here.
Absolutely, it can. Yep. Are you comfortable with that, Mr. Boder? Okay.
I just want to make sure it's done before tomorrow.
Yep. We'll get it done before tomorrow. All right, so let's continue the discussion here a little bit. Please entertain us for a little while longer, guys, if you can. Anybody else want to chime in here?
Yes, I guess I will.
Yeah,
you brought up
please.
the bathroom thing. So, yeah, are we approving the RFP for those 15 items that they listed for the scope of the project? I know you said you forgot to include the photo, but that's what we're approving today is that. And then the team that's created can say, nope, no bathrooms, kind of a thing, right? But this is today what the Riverfront Committee was like, this is what we can imagine for the first draft.
Yes,
Is that correct?
this came from the Riverfront Committee's conceptual layout. I foresee this project, because we have a strict budget of $2.85 million. We lay this out kind of like we did Memorial Park, but we can also lay it out with more alternatives. For example, if it fits the budget, we can program in a remodel of the school's existing bathroom. Whatever that PMT committee imagines, great, that's great. This is something that the consultant that is going to be looking at this proposal, this request for proposals, is going to use to build their engineering costs. And how we come to the end with the final plan set might look a lot different than this, depending on those conversations, or it might look exactly like this with a plan set that has 7 alternates, and we can build that project to our budget number instead of coming in with everything included in a plan set with one base bid number, and what we get is what we have. And it comes in at $4 million and we can't cut anything, then we're kind of stuck. So I foresee this, you let the consultants work on the scope that the Riverfront Committee gave us, and as we work through the PMT process, those things might get ex-nayed. We have representation from all the parties that we should have representation from, and as the estimates become more refined, we can see how to lay out the plans and specifications in a way that fits our budget. Because this is all based on conceptual estimates at this point. I mean, high level,
Absolutely, there's no
X
guarantee
amount
at all
to
that
X amount. Yeah.
$2.85 million is going to buy 1 through 15, 1 through 4, whatever. So is it my understanding, Mr. Sandy, that the design team for the most part is Brainerd Riverfront? One of the things I'm a little fuzzy on is the project management team going to be working together as one cohesive group navigating the design process, or will there be for instance, one entity that's doing the vast majority of the design process and the others are just kind of there as checks and balances. Can you shed a little light on how we're all going to figure out what $2.85 million is actually going to buy and how it relates to our ambitions with this project?
So I would say the project management team is the recommending body to you all. So we're all going to sit in the same room, and people are going to have different views of this. Riverfront Committee might want 6 bathrooms, and the park board may want none, and the city council may want 2, and that's that body, and they're going to make recommendations to you. You're the project manager. We don't want to overwhelm you guys, and that's why this separate team, along with the technical team, to keep people on track. Committees of just 2 park board members and 2 riverfront members and a city council member might get off track fast. The technical team is there to, here's what we need decisions on. Do you want 2 bathrooms? Do you want 0 bathrooms? Do you want 500 bathrooms? That team is there to help guide that process with the decision makers, and then the technical team keeps the project on track, and we're all going to meet in the same room, and whenever the engineers or whoever it is needs direction, that's when we would meet, make a decision, make a recommendation at the next park board meeting. Or if we need to hold special park board meetings, I think we had quite a few of those with Memorial Park project, so.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Bedell?
Well, 2 things to clarify. One, I am in support of this and the motion that is on the floor. And only speaking because I will continue to say that at every point. And just to be clear, at $700,000, we would be able to have 4.07 bathrooms. So I just want to make sure we're aware of that.
Thank you. Further discussion? The only thing I want to just ask is, the way how the RFP is worded, would the bidders on the RFP, would they benefit from knowing that we very well may ask for this to be broken out item by item by item versus one lump sum design? Just from my background design, maybe Chris can chime in on this a little bit. I would think I would be approaching that scope of work differently, knowing if I'm going to be asked to break all this down into 9 different potential projects, all independently bid or at least priced, versus one with this scope of work. And I could be wrong about that, but I'm just wondering if there would be any merit in adding that language to the scope of work. Maybe
So
not.
you're saying maybe like something to speak to alternates, that numerous
Correct.
alternates may be, in my time, I guess, in design, it just relates to roadways. I don't know how it relates to buildings. It's really not, it's all part of the same plan set, and you're designing things together at the same time anyways, and it's really just a breakout of quantities at that point. It's
Sure.
not necessarily a complete redesign because you're moving something into an alternate. And so you're basically designing things in such a way that they fit together anyways, and you're just breaking out quantities of work at that point. And so creating an alternate, when you're at a 75% plan level, isn't out of the picture.
As long as our bidders know that and we feel like we would not be drifting into a change order on that proposal asking for alternates.
Yeah. I mean, I
I'm
think,
good with it.
at the proposal time, you asked for what
Right.
like the total project could potentially be. And if there's things that they want, the PMT says, oh, we should. this
When it
is
goes out
coming
for
in
bid.
high, maybe we should just X-nay this and not even include it as an alternate. Then we get to, but I think you're asking for the grand thing first. This is what everything could potentially be.
Yep.
And then as you go through the process, maybe it's whittled down.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Sonmore?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything Paul said. I think if you're simply just noting that there could be some alternates, again, it's easy. Your design is still going to include all that, so it's
Right.
just a matter of adding that different line item in the bid form. So it's not a huge deal, but I think just simply noting that and giving them that notice is
Very good.
good.
Okay, so it sounds like, any further discussion? We do have still a live and healthy motion here to approve this change order, or to approve this RFP. So if there's no other discussion,
I have
yeah, please.
further.
Yeah,
Dave stepped out of the room. I think what he brought up is valid, but I don't think it changes this.
Yeah.
as far as the bathrooms. I don't
Yeah, I
think it
agree.
changes this at
The
all.
design at all, yeah.
But there is, you know, just with what he mentioned, as far as the project management team, I think that definitely brings the school district into play with that, because, and the reason I say that is we've had some issues this summer with our association and the school district not allowing concessions without payments, not allowing anyone to use their facilities, their buildings, and so with that being said, there has to be a different mindset, and they are ready to step and have further discussion on that. But in talking about that, and I think it's a healthy discussion,
Yeah.
that the school district has to be thought of as a working, we need to get their input and also let them know where the city stands and where the park board stands in this as well, because I'm thinking moving forward, you know, if there is another building there, because I'll tell you, the one at the Don Adamson Field is really not a working building. It's bathrooms that, in my mind, probably aren't ADA compliant. There's a concession there that's not compliant, and so, you know, if there's other events down there that we want to be able to share that building with the school district, that building is, you know, gonna need renovations, and that discussion needs to take place. So, again, I don't think it affects this at all, but I want to bring that forward, because there's a potential for shared events down there where everyone would benefit, and there definitely would be, we would need to bring them in on those discussions as well, and also for the reasons that Dave brought up, so.
Agreed.
My
Anything else?
motion as a moron doing this free stuff for 10 years roughly, is that you get involved with a lot of projects, Buster Park, Memorial Park, Miracle League Field. I mean, I've been involved with a lot of them, and none of them start and finish the way they're supposed to, budget-wise, equipment-wise, planning-wise, whatever. But you have to start somewhere. And if tomorrow the RFP is due, we have to start somewhere. That's kind of where my motion comes from.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
I would like to second the motion.
All right, we have a second to approve here by Ms. Schaefer. Any further discussion?
I guess I would just say, maybe, would you guys ever consider having someone from Brainerd Public Schools on the board with you?
We
Like
would
on
bring
that
them in, I
special
think, when
board?
that discussion takes place. I don't think they need to be a part of the
Okay, the whole thing.
the project management team, but if that
Yeah.
discussion comes up with the bathroom thing, I think definitely, or shared use
Yep.
of that, they're gonna need to be brought into this right away. There's a small little chunk of property that, the city does not own, but, as part of, when we first looked at this project, we did a survey, and it's, you know, a little triangular piece. The school district thought that they owned all that property to begin with and have been since using it. But the city does own about 99% of that property, except for one small little triangle per the survey and the title work that was done. So they will need to be brought into this right away, and just to purchase that small triangle of property, or just have them give it to us, deed it over, because it really serves them no purpose.
It could just help to make friends, you know, to have someone on the board, that's all. But yeah, sounds good.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. We have an approval on the RFP. The second part of this is the park board will also need to designate 2 park board members to sit on the PMT. Be aware, this does sound as though it may be an intensive or robust process. So I will open the conversation by volunteering myself, but I would also look for a partnering victim, other person to serve with me on this park board, or if it's not me, 2 other people. So just opening the conversation for volunteers first. Think about it long and, just kidding.
I would volunteer.
All right, we got a second volunteer by Mr. Rushmeyer. Anybody else want to be on?
I would do it too, but if you can only have 2.
And they're all gonna be open meetings, so certainly if you, oh, then we have a quorum. We'd have to actually, so yeah.
Oh, yeah. And quorum.
we'd have to start noticing our PMT meetings, which we probably will anyways, but.
Perfect.
You could just wear a mask and wear earbuds. And, or I could.
Right.
I wouldn't say anything.
All right, so we've got 4 volunteers here. How do you suggest that we do this? Narrow it from 4 down to 2. I'm looking for options.
Throw them in a hat.
A Rochambeau tournament? Excuse me?
I said you guys said it first, but
Oh.
I don't know.
Technically, the mayor is the person who would be appointing park board members, so.
Yeah, but I don't know if I select who gets to sit on it, other than to say, if you're pro bathrooms, you can stay home.
You shouldn't have left.
Pro bathroom people, and nothing against bathrooms. I'm just anti $700,000 being spent. That's my big thing.
Right.
$700,000 on bathrooms is ridiculous to me when there's a bathroom across the street.
Right.
Anyways, dibs system seems great to me. So
Dibs?
dibs.
All right.
Whoever called dibs is now appointed.
Nose goes go.
So if you guys can't make it to a meeting, you have 2
Yep.
alternates.
Does that work for everyone?
Sounds good.
Okay, so we have 2 members here. We'll need a motion on this by somebody other than me, probably, to appoint myself and Mr. Rushmeyer as the PMT representatives representing the park board.
As a vacation member, and the only person that bowed out of this job, I will make the motion to appoint Mr. Rushmeyer as well as President Yeager to be part of the.
Very good. We got a motion,
Second shape.
and we have a second by Mr. Shipe. Any further discussion? All right, our last chance, Rushmeyer. Still in?
I don't know.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. All right, we got a PMT. Oh, boy. Okay. Item 9B, discussion of national fitness campaign. Ms. Kaufman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This idea concept of a fitness court was, I believe, presented maybe a year plus ago when we first started talking about Memorial Park, what we wanted in Memorial Park. I'm not necessarily sure beyond a budgetary standpoint why it was taken out, but I want to bring it to your attention. They reached out to me about a month or so ago, and we kind of discussed what it's all about. It's an opportunity to provide free fitness to the public. They have, I believe, a $30,000 grant available, but we would have to provide a lot more than that to install it. But it's an opportunity to partner with potentially Essentia Health, Cuyuna, and then maybe even the YMCA in the future. I'm more or less looking for you to, hopefully you reviewed the video I sent you. There's an executive summary attached, a program summary, and then also some installation detail. The only fitness court that's in the state of Minnesota right now is in Waite Park. I did reach out to them today, but I had to leave a message with the Public Works Director. But I did ask questions like, how did this process work for you? Who did you partner with to get it installed? What's the maintenance like? Those type of important questions, we need to consider before moving forward. Today, I'm just asking that Park Board look over the materials, watch the video, and then also I'm curious if you believe this could fit into a park in the city of Brainerd. The person that contacted me said they like to base the fitness courts based off geothermal type, so you're more of your high traffic parks. He suggested Lum Park, Memorial Park, or Gregory Park. So with those master plans coming into fruition, maybe something to consider as part of something we could add to those parks. So with that, I'm just opening it up for discussion.
All right.
Where the one in Waite Park is? I think I probably know where the softball field is.
It's
Across
something
maybe
river. It's by, I believe it's like by a river.
By the Sauk River Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be down there tomorrow and or Thursday, so I'll swing by and see if I can take a look at it.
Cool.
All right, comments, questions? I have just one quick question. The the money that they presented, which is the match, the 40, do we know how old that is and how accurate this,
Well, this is-
the funding is at this point?
They gave us a 2022. This is like a new
Okay.
initiative,
Gotcha.
so. Yeah. But if we were looking to do this down the road, I don't know
Right.
what that would look like.
Exactly. So in their mind, they're seeing that this math formulates for a construction season of 2022, right? Mr. Sandy?
I will say, so as we get into the budget discussion, and just a precursor to that is what you guys saw 2 weeks ago and what you have again in front of you tonight is really just deferred maintenance items. Any of the new dreamy type of things you can imagine in any of our parks is not a part of our capital plan currently. So when you're looking at that, that is simply the items that the chair and I thought and our maintenance personnel thought need work. And so keep that in mind as you think about these things. It's not something we have to include, this year, but, it's something to keep in the back as we throw these ideas out there, as we try to rethink some of our parks. It's just those ideas to keep in the back of your mind that, if you find a good spot where you think this would be a good idea, then I think, from hearing what the city council has tried to do with the 30-year capital plan, it's starting to think of those things well in advance of when they actually come up. So it's in a plan. The dollar amount might not be specifically locked down, but if you have it identified and you have a cost associated with it at, this year's costs, then at least we're thinking about it and not, being reactive to our maintenance needs. I think that's the purpose of our 30-year plan, is to be proactive in keeping things up to date and things nice for our citizens. But that budget that's in front of you tonight is simply deferred maintenance on existing infrastructure.
Yep, understood. Thank you.
I'd be interested in Wake Park's thoughts on, especially the maintenance and how it ages. Like, it looks very nice, and they seem to have a lot of opening ceremony videos. But, after 5 years, does it look that good still, or does everything still work? Especially with cold and snow and ice, and
Yeah,
but it seems cool, especially for Memorial.
Mr. Bedell, please.
Just a couple of questions. On this documentation they show a bunch of organizations, and one of them is the YMCA, which just caught my eye. But you also talked about potentially Essential Health or maybe some other partnerships. And that made me think of, at the Arboretum, they have a walking path that has this type of stuff, which I believe was from Essential Health. Have we reached out to them at all to see if they have any interest in any type of potential funding, or if there's anything available for something like that?
Are you talking about?
Just either one of them. Because just for something like this, I think a partner would be ideal.
I agree, 100%.
Find someone that's interested in presenting funds, but I'm just wondering if that's something we've looked into, and I would assume not, but potential for that. My only comment on the one in the Arboretum was I was not very impressed by that, but I like this idea. I think the problem with the Arboretum one is, it's like, oh, we're gonna go for a walk, and then it's like, oh, now we're gonna do a pull-up. It just didn't make sense. It was like, all right, now we're doing chin-ups.
Right.
Do any chin-up.
I know. No, I don't want to knock their system, but I like this feel to it because it's more conducive to a park. But I'm just wondering if from a partnership idea, if we're looking to find potential dollars that may be
Yeah.
out there.
I mean, we could certainly ask staff to dig into some of that and start noodling around. I'll just speak personally. To me, this feels like a good fit for Memorial, because I think of Memorial Park as just hear me out, Mr. Bedell. I think of Memorial Park more as the sport complex style park, and I think of Lum and Gregory more green space oriented. Me personally, I'm not seeing these nestle right into Lum or Gregory, but that's just me. But I don't know.
Well, we bought a parking lot.
What's happening here, Karen?
I could be talked to either way. I swear.
Your horseshoe pits are quickly,
I know, I didn't even see them listed, believe me. No, I'm just-
I love the partner idea, though. I'd love to see us dig into that a little.
agreed. President?
Yes, please, Mr. Rushmeyer.
So, agree, you know, Mr. Schreiber brings up a good point. How well does this stuff hold up under, you know, severe weather conditions, both heat and then cold? Are we at risk for somebody coming screaming through this area on a snowmobile in the wintertime and hitting these small areas, these small things and getting hurt? Are we, I don't see anything about ADA compliance here. Is there stuff for people with disabilities to work on fitness? And I'm just asking these questions because it might come up, and I think it's a pretty cool thing. The other part of this for me, the first thing that entered my mind is we'd have to really think hard about where to put this. And it wouldn't just be, well, this sounds like a good place, or this sounds, we may want to look at it as a totally different view and say, is there a park that we would like to have more people attend? More people at for certain reasons. And so I think there would need to be a lot of thought going into, if we were going to do this, where would be the best fit for it? And that takes time. And so I'm not against that. I'm just looking at this and saying, kind of thinking the same thing as, how well does this stuff hold up, or do we try to cover it during the winter months, or weather is not kind to most materials.
Well, I'm looking at a map of all their facilities, and it looks to be about 75% of them are like below St. Louis area. So maybe they're not used to being frozen yet.
And I think it's a good point Mr. Schreiber brought up, was to talk to Wade Park and see how theirs is holding up. Partnerships would be great, and I'm not against this at all. I just think we should, I don't know that putting it in somewhere in 2022, if that allows us enough time to try to figure this out, because there needs to be a lot of thought that will go into this.
I almost feel like it needs to be part of a master plan, you know, the master planning also.
The intent of presenting this to you was more in response to you guys asking if we had any like new ideas of things we wanted to bring to the parks. So that was more of the intent, is to bring an opportunity towards you guys, not necessarily for 2022, but to get somewhat of a framework of maybe in 2024, 2025, just so we can start getting that like fundraising or those partnerships developed. And with the YMCA, the idea with that was that they would provide the programming potentially for it. That they would, because they have the exercise group fitness staff already trained, ready to go. It would just be a quick class for them to teach there as an opportunity, so.
Yeah, I think the purpose of tonight is just garner general interest. If it was an absolute, heck no, we don't want this, then we would just, you know. So I think, kind of the consensus I think we're garnering here is that you'd like us to continue looking at it and making calls and seeing if there's interest from the community or partners to.
I don't think there's anyone here that wants to rule it out right now, right?
A couple of years will give me a chance to look at some spandex colors.
It's supposed to be green. Oh,
That's a bad mental picture.
Match that with his nipple
I didn't
tassels.
say for
Oh,
me.
Jesus. All right, we're almost there, guys. Oh, yeah, please.
Sorry, I agree with a lot of what everyone said, but as far as partners and stuff, if you pull up the Wake Park one, like, they have a nice little banner, you know, that shows all their different partners, and like Shields, you know, Viking Coke, Shopko, the Lions Clubs, like, we could almost maybe try to do it quicker than the splash pad, but, you know, we could do it where we, you know, get partners in the community like that. I really like that idea. But yeah, everything you guys mentioned. But I also really liked what Troy said about using a different park. So these parks that have nothing in them, I don't know how big this is. I'm not good with dimensions, but, you know, like, could we just take over one of those green spaces and make it this? Like, that could
Gustafson
be
or
cool.
something?
Yeah.
Gustafson?
I really like that idea too. So I was thinking that same way, but.
It appears to be just under 40 by 40.
Is that like the size of Gustafson?
About the size of.
Yeah, pretty close, yeah, pretty
Yeah,
close.
so hey.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
But then that could also bring like, that exercise stuff into that community. Maybe they don't need a gym membership. They can just walk down the block. So I totally love it. And I don't remember this being part of the plan before. I don't feel like I would have nixed it, but
No?
I don't know. There was a lot before, so
Yeah.
great job.
Thank you for bringing it. I guess consensus here, green light, keep working on it. Keep going.
Ta-da.
All right. Anything else on that? No? All right, here we are. We've navigated our way all the way to main agenda. Discussion of 30-year parks capital plan. Mr. Sandy. Mr. Sandy, please, just a quick setup. I think we all know where we're going with this, but we were all given homework to review this, so I'm hoping we have. But Mr. Sandy, quick overview, and we'll turn it over.
Okay, so right now on your screen, you'll see what's in your packet. This is just the spreadsheet version. I kind of wanted to kind of do a live edit with you guys, and so hopefully you guys have had a chance to review this. And the attachments I provided, basically, it's laid out all capital summary in these tabs. The first tab is parks equipment. That is our vehicles, our field groomers, our trailers, our skid steers, our snow blowers, our mowers. We're talking a little bit smaller dollar items as we talk through those. Really, this is just a plan to keep our equipment on a reasonable replacement cycle. It's something that we've done for all of our departments in the city. The parks is kind of the last one to get on board with this. And when I took over, this was the first thing I sat down with Troy with is let's get our equipment on a replacement plan and have a plan that looks out 30 years in the future. So if we have 3 field groomers, let's get them replaced on a 15-year cycle so that we are not throwing a lot of money into our equipment that is not, that preventative maintenance becomes more costly than just purchasing a new unit. So all these are laid out. Basically, we have parks equipment, which you'll see up right now. Upgrades all parks is the stuff that we talked about briefly at the last meeting. This is upgrades that we would do on an annual basis and have a dollar amount set aside. This was kind of that beautification fund you guys had set aside. So this includes our tree replacements. You can see the $25,000 number in there. Picnic table, grilling station, trash can replacement program. Kevin and I set aside $15,000 a year for that. That gets us going down the path of hopefully replacing our wooden picnic tables for ones that are more maintenance friendly, such as the ones you see in Gregory Park, the steel ones with the plastic coating on them. It gets new grilling stations in Lum Park. It maybe add grilling stations in other parks. It gets us down the road of potentially replacing trash cans that I know are the chair's his arch nemesis. A weed and
That
feed
will be
program.
my legacy. If nothing else, the trash cans will be. Continuing on. Sorry, Mr. Sandy.
The weed and feed program, this is something that came up earlier this year. We wanted to really start looking at our green space parks that were brought up before, like Gregory, Lum, some of the areas that have high foot traffic and green spaces, and getting those on a good weed and feed type program, like a 4-time-a-year type of program. So we start getting the grass to come through and the dandelions to go away. And so our real green space parks, this, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, but it was, it includes all of our fields still that we do today. It was Gregory, Triangle, Lum Park around the pavilions. Kiwanis, yep. So the parks that see a lot of traffic in our green spaces, that's the parks that we kind of priced that number around. A bench installation program, we had set aside $5,000 a year for that. That is for, along trails. We have a large amount of trails in this city, sidewalks, that kind of thing in our parks, and no infrastructure for sitting. That number, as we get further down the road, we might find that we have too many benches and we might want to just get rid of that completely. If we get to a point that is not necessary. Park ADA upgrades. We have a lot of concrete and things that are in disrepair in our parks, evident in Lum Park, Gregory, trippers, concrete around warming houses, around pavilions that just needs ADA upgrades, smoothing out the trippers, putting in the truncated domes for the blind population. There's just a lot of things that $25,000 a year will get us moving in the right direction, at least with replacing concrete panels. We just did some in Lum Park the other day. It was $1,700 to replace some concrete around the shower area that was heaved up. But that is a number that I feel very strongly about, because as you walk through our parks, it's a liability for us not to address those issues. Park sign replacements, that is part of beautification and wayfinding, that kind of thing. We had figured $5,000 a year for that would be a good start. Security cameras, that number is basically replacing one camera a year in our park. So the most recent one we did was in Gregory at the new warming house. The plan is to install one at the new warming and memorial, but then that $6,500 a year gets us either to place a camera, for example, maybe the next one's at Kiwanis or under the College Drive Bridge, and then it gets us on a replacement cycle that the oldest one in the bunch gets replaced, and then we continue down that 8-year cycle. So we figure about 8 parks or 8 facilities will have a camera on them, and you replace one a year after each facility has one. Our police department has spoken very much in favor of this. They utilize, so now that we've gotten Gregory Park on a camera, they have it down on a screen at the PD, and so they can monitor the activity by the pavilion and make sure that, you know, people aren't doing things that might be disruptive to the park or creating damage to our facilities. So if we get them all being able to be streamed down at the PD, so that they are able to monitor that, and with our bathroom locking policy that we had earlier this year, it's a great start in making sure police presence is in our parks and we keep the vandalism at a minimum. And then once you get past that point, we get into the general park upgrades. So they're in order. We have Bain Park. I'm way off here. Bain Park. This includes what I found to be all of the equipment and facilities we have, but we picked out the things that need attention. So in 2024 in Bain, we had a new playground. Bain's one of our nicer parks already. 2029, we have Miracle League turf replacement. That was in the original plan. We just continued that. But we also have a year, so you can see in each column there's a year plan, so we figure it's a 10-year replacement cycle for our playground equipment. So that 80,000 number is plugged in every 10 years across this plan. So if you go through each one of these parks, it's very similar. You can look at each one of them. Buffalo Hills, we did have this paving in there in the old plan. That's one item that I would like some discussion around too, is where do we foresee pavement in the future? And if so, how do we program that and make it fit right into this plan? When you get to the summary at the end, as I stated last week, we are very heavy on the first few years, and then it really starts tapering off. So if it's the park board's, decision, we can maybe stretch that out a little bit. You look at 2023, 2022, we're up near the 650,000 range. If you guys prefer, we can look at what we have planned for those years and stretch some of that out into future years, or we can present this as is. And that's just really dependent on your direction here tonight. And so at this juncture, I guess I'll leave it up to you, Mr. Chair, on how you want to proceed through this.
Thank you, Mr. Sandy. Lots of work went into putting this together, especially this way, how it's broken apart. Just before we open up the discussion, I'm just going to mention that, and Paul briefly touched on this budget that is currently in front of you really is mostly just deferred maintenance. I know we all in our mind have special projects that we'd like to think about in the future, and we can talk about how to approach those, especially to bring those to council or to bring those to a funding standpoint. But in my mind, the basic game plan that is kind of, for me, is we go to our council and we say, hey, look, we have put a ton of time and effort into understanding the deferred maintenance. This is it. This doesn't really represent any new projects. And then we would look at new projects on a case-by-case basis, depending upon joint funding, funding partners from within the city, privately or organizational, and so forth. So if that's what we want to do, that's one way to do it. The other angles would be, we could take these numbers and say, we don't know what we want to build, but we need another 200 grand a year for growth or our future ambitions, to a master plan. So keep in mind that what we've got in front of us right now really just mostly represents deferred maintenance.
Mr. Chair.
And this will be a big number for the city council as is. Yes, Mr.
If I may,
Sandy.
just so that, we kind of keep the conversation focused, I would say we should concentrate on like 10 years, like I presented in the packet first, and most importantly, 2022. That's the budget we're talking about right now. We need to make sure that we're solid on what we have for 22 for sure. And then if you need more time to, digest this and make sure you're really thinking about everything, let's look at, first 22 and then 10 years. And then as we move through the end of this year and into next year, let's keep looking at the whole thing as a big picture, 30-year type of time frame. So
Yes, thank you. Very great advice. I agree. 10 years is really what we should be focusing on here the first go. So at this point, I'm going to open it up for conversation, questions for staff, the dialogue. Here we go. Budget talk. Mr. Rushmeyer.
So I appreciate the work that you guys put into this. I think it's great. I think it's, that maintenance is a huge issue, and I think, it's been identified over the last year or so that how much we need that, especially moving forward. And I would just like to say, as a board, we have memorial project still ongoing. And we have other things that we want to see completed there, that we don't want to. I think we have to look at that park in itself, not letting the walkways and the trails and the other pavilion and the other things fall off our radar. I think, we started something, we want to see it through, we want to see it finished. But I think we also need to, now we have this riverfront project coming down the chute. But I think we also need to, in the same time, and I know it's a lot of work, but be thinking about what kind of enhancements can we make that creates funding for the parks, that will turn around and go right back into the parks. And the one that pops out to me right off the bat is Lum Park, and what can we do there? Just looking at campground sites and different things and enhancements and improvements in that park. Again, I was out on Rice Lake today and at Lum Park, and again looking at that beach, and would we see a lot more people in that park if we had a different beach front there and more amenities and a road that maybe kind of resembled what we used to have there. I don't know if all of you recognize what we used to have there, but the road went throughout the whole park. And Kim's probably thinking, no, we don't need any more campsites, but what a great way to raise some money with these campsites. And if we can, and that doesn't mean that we give up the whole park. It's just, do we look at allotting some more area in that park to get more people here? And then what do we have there that people would want to come here even more so for, and think about that bike trail that's coming. And so this is great, but I think we also have to make sure that we don't forget about those things that we still need to be thinking about and how we improve, not just from a maintenance standpoint, but improve the amenities that we have.
Yeah, and
Improve upon them, I should say.
when I said that it was all deferred maintenance, technically not true, because Memorial Park has 265 grand going next year. Basically, everything that was in our master plan is slated to be done within this proposed budget by 2025. So it's technically not all deferred maintenance. There is some carryover from our, and you can see that on the Memorial Park breakdown.
It's up on the screen right now too.
Up, sorry. Yeah.
So yeah, there is, we programmed in, I don't know why I am on Lum, that's why.
You got Lum. Oh, there,
Yeah.
sorry.
So we did put the small rink lights and the small rink system for the boards around the new rink in 2022. We did include in 23 remodel and of the
shelter.
existing concessions stand at Mills Field. In 24, we have some fencing, basically remove the tall green fencing around Mills Field and open that up and make it so you can see what's going on in there. And then Memorial Park Phase 2, you can see those numbers are still in there in 24 and 25 as you guys originally had them. So not only did we add a little bit to that, we also kept what was originally what your guys' conversations were previously about Phase 2 and what has come about with the Memorial Park project with that alternate one, building the rink, not including the lights and the boards. So that is in there. Like you said with Lum Park, there is some things in there that would be considered new. The beach, we have a number in there for 2024, and that would be a refab, rehash of the beach, thinking about the beach house. Like you said with the campground, I think, with parks maintenance, vacating the building, we did have 15,000 there for demo of that existing structure. Probably a good spot to, and that all kind of folds into the line item we have in the all capital under the line 40 here, the master plan. We left that in there as a reminder that, if that's where the board would like to go at some point, that line is in there. We don't have a number in there. I don't know what it's gonna cost for something like that, but that's, I think, what gets to the new amenities kind of thing and where we can expand and maybe where we should pull back a little bit and think about money in different parks. So we strategically left items in there that don't have a dollar amount, but at least provides us a reminder that that's
Can you give us a, just as a quick reminder on what our timing is here, just so everyone knows how much time we have to fiddle with this before my presentation in September? We haven't until September.
So, as how this is kind of laying out is we kind of want to make sure we have a decision for 22 at least ready probably by the end of this meeting. And that is imperative for the budgeting process that we're going through right now as from a city standpoint as a whole. So next year for sure, the 10-year side, if there's still some movements and things you guys want to do, that is certainly still, I think we'll get a good reaction from the council on what their kind of aim dollar amount is. As you can, like I said before, it's big and then it tapers off. So do they have a dollar amount that they're willing to allocate yearly to the Parks Department for improvements? And then we can really hone this thing in. And so 2022, I would say, is the most important. And I think Connie was shooting for a council workshop in which Mr. Yeager will be presenting out sometime towards the end of August. So tonight's capital, I would anticipate that operation budgets that we're putting together right now would be presented at our August 10th meeting, which is also our design standard workshop. We're getting kind of into crunch time with budget, and so we had to squeeze that in somewhere. So that design standard workshop was planned for August 10th, where WSN was going to have a draft of that, and I presume that we're going to try to get an operational budget in front of you guys that day too. And so we're really kind of into crunch time, and 22 is, like I said, the most imperative at this point, and making sure we have projects identified in 22 that we want to pursue and have in our capital budget. But then the 10-year side, maybe a 5-year bite first and then a 10-year to make sure. But I think getting an initial reaction from the city council, because it'll be the first time that they've seen this. And I think getting that reaction first, making sure tonight, getting a reaction on at least in the next 10 years. And then from there, we can make some modifications based on that feedback that we get from them.
There you go. So upon that direction, would tonight really 2022 is what we should be really looking at. And if you've all read through it, certainly want to hear some thoughts. If not, we could breeze through just through 2022 real quick, if that helps.
Can I ask real quick, for 2022, you have $116,500 for park upgrades. How much of that can our staff do? Or how much of it do you figure is going to be subbed out?
So the weed and feed program is already going to be subbed out. That's by our landscaping company that comes in with equipment to spray weeds, apply fertilizer. Sign replacements, that's easy. We can work with the street department on that. We have the equipment and availability. Security cameras, that is something that's always subbed out. ADA, that is something that we're gonna have to hire like an Anderson Brothers or something to do. Our hope that in the future, as far as, installing new picnic tables and things, that picnic tables, have a cement slab underneath them and are bolted down. We have a cement mixer already. And so that's one of the things that we buy aggregate, we buy sand, we buy cement, we can mix it ourselves and lay a lot of these pads ourselves. And so, that type of work is definitely in our wheelhouse. Tree replacements, that's gonna be something that landscaper's gonna come in and do those on our behalf. And so a lot of the 116,000 you see there, most of it is subbed out
Okay.
to contractors. I would say 90% of it.
I had a couple questions about the all parks section.
Yep.
The trash can replacements, is that the existing, I don't know, plastic bins, are those becoming a more permanent trash can, or is it just buying new ones as they wear out?
Oh my God.
Is this a bad topic?
This is a terrible topic, but you right into the fire. So here, this got in there because of my raising the point that the flipper waste management trash cans look tacky. You go to nice parks, they got a nice looking can with a lid. That's it. That's how it came about. So the idea was that we were going to start implementing some nicer trash receptacles versus the cans tied to the posts over time.
Ones you kinda
We're
see,
going to
like-
try it in one park, a triangle, I believe.
Yeah.
I actually did talk to Baxter, about their trash
Careful, Troy.
that they like out there.
They loved them, right?
They do, yeah. The maintenance, people really like them.
That was the feedback I did get from our guys too, is the flip can lids are,
Yeah, and they don't place anything in there, they dump them.
For the record, I did not know Troy was going to say that, and that that Mr. Sandy was going to agree with him. I had no idea.
I happened to be out there a few weeks ago, and I talked to, Alex, is it Alex? Yeah, and, was asking about them, and they did the same thing, they replaced a few at a time, and, but he's been happy with them, and, I didn't talk to his maintenance staff, but he said that they were happy with them, and.
I'm sorry. We stole the floor from Mr. Scheid. Please continue on.
No, the reason I asked is I think I was in Gregory Park on Friday and every trash can was flipped over, like just dumped out. And it's like, this is not a.
Doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Is
And
there
then
any
there's,
pictures of Kevin?
It was not. I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
and the argument that was made is that we have a satellite lifter right now on the back of our truck, but, anything is overcomable. We have this now, but what does our future trash pickup machine look like? If we start switching to something different, then we have to look at a different trash pickup, it's.
What's the cost of that, though?
Huh?
Becomes the next question. What's the cost of that, though, becomes the next question. Because if it's,
Well, it depends on the type of trash receptacle that you have. If they're ones like downtown, they pick those up with standard garbage trucks. And so our satellite lifter will be just as simple as that. That's the ones I'm thinking you're looking,
Yeah.
or you want to look like, are the ones downtown. They come up right with the garbage truck, they pick them up, they dump them, they move on. They're basically a green flippy lid trash receptacle inside of a nice container.
Right.
Good question.
apologies for the.
How much does it cost? Trash cans? Are you kidding me?
Fire on, or gas the fire.
you want, if you're gonna put $5,000 in your budget that says that that's for redoing your trash cans, but you may have to completely redo your equipment for getting those trash cans, that has to be in your budget.
Just for the record, it's trash cans, grilling stations, and picnic tables.
which I'd love to comment on the rest of those.
Continuing on. No, it's fine. Please, Mr. Bedell.
I think
Mr. Shea.
Yeah. Some more, right?
Oh, second question was the ADA upgrades. You mentioned some of them are liabilities. Would there be value in front-loading some of that money to reduce the most egregious liabilities?
I think you just start working on it. It's also about workload too, and how much can you bite off in a year? You pick out the worst areas first, spend 25,000 year one. They haven't been an issue yet, but we start picking on the worst ones, and then you start getting better and better over time. So I would say that, you can't buy a lot with 25,000. A good example that I always use is Oak Street that was resurfaced 2019, I think, mill and overlay. $300,000 mill and overlay project turned into a $650,000 project because state aid requires that everything be brought up to ADA standards, and every curb ramp that was placed in 2012 on Oak Street was non-compliant with new ADA. And so we had to go and replace every ADA ramp. It was exposed concrete, and they don't allow that anymore.
Was that your engineering firm that designed that by chance?
It's the world we live in, and unfortunately, but most of that money would be spent first on egregious trippers, heaved up curb, that kind of stuff that just, it's a look thing too. Lum Park's a good example of a lot of concrete that needs love and attention.
Cool, thank you. Yep. That was all I had.
Anything else?
I have a few questions.
Yeah, please.
And I know I wasn't here last time, so I apologize that if these were already answered, but, okay, so under equipment, these MHZ radios, are those walkie-talkies? Okay. And then, so the guys, or the teams use those versus their cell phones? Is that,
Yeah, so if I may, Mr. Chair, so
Please.
Our street department and our parks department, so our street guys have 8 radios, and our parks department has 3. And we don't, our staff doesn't have work phones or don't get reimbursed.
Okay.
And so those radios, especially for our, not necessarily our foremans have cell phones that I call them on, but the rest of our staff does not. And so they rely, even when snow plowing, they rely on 800 megahertz radios. They keep them on their belt, and it's a quick, instead of calling, it's a, and in emergency situations where we're clearing streets, they have full access to being on the same channel as the police department, the fire department.
Okay.
It's kind of, when you have maintenance personnel that may respond to an emergency situation with cutting trees out of streets or helping out with that they have that capability of having a radio.
okay, no, that makes sense. I wasn't sure if their cell phones are covered, so that's cool. Okay, and then we had mentioned in other meetings about having automatic locks put in the bathrooms, if you guys remember that. Is that something that we could put under upgrades for all the parks, or did we think about that at all? Or, I know that the police right now are doing the 10 o'clock thing, and maybe that's just what we want to, because they're still doing that, right? They're still
Yeah, yep,
doing
they
the
lock them at
lockups.
10. Yep.
So I don't know, maybe that's what we want to just keep doing. It doesn't cost us any money, right? But I don't know if that's what they want to continue to do, so I just didn't want to lose that thought if it was going to come up next year that they were too busy, or, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I can speak to that.
Yeah,
When we
please.
had a conversation with our new police chief, Mike Bestel, he found that policy as a very big benefit to his department because it gets them into our parks, especially at the times when that type of vandalism and things occur. And the more presence you have, the less of that occurs. So implementing the security camera thing and having them stop by each night to each park at 10 is a huge benefit to them because it gives their officers a reason to make sure they stop at every park, lock things up, look it over, see if there's any suspicious activity going on. So it just has that presence. And I think people find comfort in that too, that they're actually stopping by. So he finds it to be very beneficial.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that'll save us money then too. For Gregory Park, so you have the fountain and you have the bandstand. So, does the is that like the $250,000 to replace the fountain? Has that happened before? Do we know that's how much it is? Does it need to be replaced, or is it just like a holder in case?
Our council president has specifically asked for some attention to be given to the fountain. So Mr. Sandy and I met, and we talked about what this fountain would cost to, what we thought the projected number would be to bring it back to those standards. And this was the number. And as we phase this out, we put it basically where we thought it fell into a year that would allow for that kind of investment. And I'm going to be certainly looking for city council's feelings on that as well, so. Yeah, Mr. Bedell.
This is a great example of an item that you put in front of the councils so that they themselves are forced with the reality of what they're asking.
That's exactly why I did it.
$250,000 for a fountain that is functioning may stir some feelings, so. And the location of it seems very appropriate.
To be honest with that, that was a number that I think Tony came up with a long time ago. He did some research with contractors and came up with that number, and we just left it in there because, we have heard comments about that, and, we'll just, our thought was leave it in there and see what the reaction is.
Okay. And I know, sorry, you wanted to focus on 2022, but splash pad maintenance, that was another one. Do we need to, it's not 2022, but should we we don't know, I don't remember that, is it 5 years, 10 years? I know we probably found out when is it gonna need maintenance, but maybe we should put that as, I don't even know how much to put in, but just something out there so that they know, the council knows that we're thinking ahead and taking care of that, because now it's ours, so.
Yeah, I think a line item that relates to fixture replacement or something after, and we'll talk to the manufacturer to see what the average lifespan is, so we can program numbers in there to reflect what that is, because I frankly don't know.
It came up in a meeting, Chris. You remember we talked about this? It was 15 years, I believe, is what they said.
I can't remember,
Yeah, that sounds about right.
something like that.
And if-
I guess I would be figuring too, not just the fixtures, even some, whether it's, sealing cracks in the concrete, things like that too. Need to be accounted for.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, and last thing would just be, I don't see the new park listed on here, right? It's called Mississippi Trailhead right now. Should we have something that, even though we're getting the money from a grant for 2022, should we have that listed in there so that it's on the radar again of the council, knowing that we're adding another park in there? Or did I just miss it? I know you guys did a lot of
It's on my list also, but we technically didn't know we got this money until just a couple weeks ago, so.
Oh, okay.
And technically, it's not a park. I love reiterating the fact that technically this is not even a park yet. So it's money that is in place to become a park, but it has not been dedicated as a park even from the council. So even though that money is set aside, it's in a weird place.
But
I didn't realize that either, but,
by all rights, the momentum seems to be bringing us to a place of where this will become our domain to maintain. Would that be your understanding, Mr. Bedell?
Yeah, I would love for them to just come right out and say that it's now a park. It seems like a really weird place for that to be placed, and putting it in front of you guys when it hasn't been dedicated as such, it seems like you're putting things in the wrong order. Make it a park, spend money on the park, and have the park board be in charge of that money. It doesn't seem like that difficult of a sequence of events.
okay, well, so that's what I had on my list right now. I could talk for a while, but that's what I wanted to just bring up for sure.
I agree, 100%. I agree 100%. And it's on my list also to talk about the Mississippi Trailhead, if we should throw money in there just so we, even beyond maintenance, just as, so go ahead, Mr. Rushmeyer.
Was the, and I only say this because I was in that park here during the 15-year tournament, is the Mill Park, the Mills Field decking? Did I miss it, or is there something on there, or for the Bum Park, the new fishing pier, as far as the decking, and are we gonna spray that? Are we gonna paint that?
I think that just falls under standard repairs and maintenance. We dedicate 60 to 70,000 a year in repair and maintenance costs, and if those need to be sealed, that would be something we just have in that operational budget. It's not really capital related.
And I just say that, and I'm only saying that because, for instance, those decks in Mills Field, there's a lot of wood there, and did not get the necessary, and I'm not blaming anyone, they just didn't. treatment that probably could have prevented some maintenance down the road. I'm seeing we're having to replace boards in there, and I know there's more that has to. But I'm just asking that for as far as the fishing pier as well to, you know, I just want to make sure that that's part of our budget as well.
Do you feel like you would have money in the capital maintenance for that
Yeah, as deck boards or
deck
things.
next year?
Yeah,
Okay.
the fishing pier right now.
No, I mean the decks at, the deck at.
We've already
Mill.
started replacing some of the boards, and if that's what we need to do is get a sealer on it or a stain of some sort to keep the water intrusion at a minimum, you know, replace the bad boards right now, which I just saw a bill come through. We've spent like $1,300 on new wood. So Troy has it on his radar. He's starting to look at that, and if we have to do a stain or a sealer on those to keep the water at a minimum, then, you know, that's something that we just do operationally, not considered a capital item, so. Unless it becomes a full replacement, then we're into the talking capital.
And I don't know, for some ungodly known reason, we're in charge of the roundabouts in this town? Is that, there's nothing in here as far as maintenance on the roundabout, especially the new one by Walgreens? I mean, we have, does that have to be called in our budget as well?
Yeah, that's an operational cost.
All
once
boulevards,
again.
yeah.
Staff time and operations, like our street department did most of that this year. Yeah, that's a charter thing. It's a little nuance with the charter is boulevards and green spaces in the city are responsibility and purview of park board, but now we have a lot of that happening, kind of commingling. The street department did most of the maintenance this year with remulching them and weeding them and getting them cleaned up. So it's just as time allows, and it's more of an operational thing than a capital need. This is specifically related to basically items that are large enough in nature where, you know, a long-term plan, it'll become a capital asset, is what we call it. So once the capital asset's in place, then it falls under the operational maintenance budgets.
So our big ones for next year, you guys, really, to me, the big ones that could be talked about is the $120,000 at J.C.'s Park and $150,000 set aside to pave Memorial. That's kind of our two big purchases for next year.
And Kiwanis.
And Kiwanis.
Yep.
We have 120 grand going into J.C.'s for playground equipment. Technically, I created this list, so I'm going to argue that this was where I thought the money should go, but we're all on this board together, and I want us all to have the say in what.
Is this the playground equipment that's kind of across towards the road?
It was both. It's two locations there. It's the one that's by the ball fields and then the little one, yep. If you drive around our parks, it's Triangle, and those two are really the ones that are incredibly antiquated. I mean, they're by far the worst. That's how this list got made with this. Correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, right? And the resurfacing at Memorial.
Do we need two playground equipments at J.C.'s?
Well, that's a good point, and that was something that I've been looking at is we almost have two separate parks over there,
We do.
and we should really look at how do we make that one? You know, is there something we can do between there?
Wet.
And more one park?
It's really wet.
Yeah, if any guys have been, even this year, which is amazing, which has been very dry, it's super soggy going in between the two. So I don't know what kind of traffic we got going in between the two, but.
And you can always just combine that dollar amount into one large playground. We have done that in other ones in here, Lum Park specifically, where we have, you know, kind of scattered playground equipment, just kind of combining that into one playground complex instead of having a swing set over here and a slide over here and that kind of stuff. There's circumstances in the plan that actually have, it says, take two, combine into one. Gregory, I think, is another example, where we have two that are spaced out. Let's take the money we would spend on two playgrounds, conglomerate it into one large one.
That reason I thought about that is that little playground that's by the pony field there is a potential, I mean, that's fall ball heaven there, and, you know, how someone hasn't gotten injured there is kind of beyond they haven't, that I know of, but it just seems like, if I had a naughty kid, that's where I'd send them during the fall.
What do you mean if?
Just something to think about.
So with this allocation, it wouldn't be tying us into doing 2 locations still. It would just be saying.
We're just earmarking the money for, tentatively for that, yep.
And then the big upgrades in Kiwanis would be a facelift on the pavilion, a facelift on the gazebo, and a remodel and roofing and fascia type of the bathrooms and that pavilion area.
Yeah, Kiwanis is getting another 100 grand roughly.
105, yep.
To me, if we were looking at horse trading something, you would look potentially at 2023, which is the next year, and then maybe snag something from 23, put it in 22, and or vice versa, 22. But
Yeah, the ask between 21 and 22 is about 200,000 more in 22 than 21. So our ask in 21 was about 450, 22 is about 650, 23 is about 630, and then we start seeing a
Falls down.
we start seeing a decrease. Yeah, and that's why, you know,
And I think the mindset there is that if we can condition the city council to be thinking the 650 number, then you potentially have some room for some new projects to begin to flourish in past 2027, somewhere in there once we start getting into some years that are in the threes. But my intent would be long-term to be putting a pretty steady number in front of the city council of 1.1, 1.7.
Are you ready to hear?
Okay, Mr. Bedell, please.
Okay, so I'm not going to be a very popular person in this room right now. Your initial numbers are getting some blowback in terms of how high they are. It's considering that in 2020 and prior to that we were substantially lower. Even just jumping up to the 400,000, that's quite a jump from where we were previous. And I think the council's initial response to this was a giant gulp. But having said that, there I think is some room to work with there. But I just want to be very upfront with you that you're going to get a lot of resistance on anywhere near 600,000. That doesn't mean that it can't be achieved, but those numbers are high, and especially if that's where you want to go in the future, you're going to get some individuals that are very, very adamantly opposed to that. I just wrote down some quick notes, but like one of the first things I wanted to talk about was that you have a great, in terms of your equipment, your dollar amounts on the equipment are very appropriate. And I really appreciate that it's very consistent over 30 years. My one remark on that was that in 2024, you dropped down to 15,000, where you seem to be at around the 30,000 level, and then the very next year you jump up to 85. Something that the council will appreciate seeing is cut half of that off of 25 and put it in 24, and present that as in 25 we know we've got a big jump, so in 24 we put half of that into it. They appreciate seeing that type of stuff. But in terms of your equipment looks fantastic. Your all parks, or all upgrades, all parks, I think you can get really good support for that philosophy, especially because you're looking at exactly what you've been talking about and the language you've been using, in that you're looking for beautification, you're looking for how are the spaces that we're creating, what are the things that we're doing, and so presenting a dollar amount like that, that is specifically earmarked towards trees, weed removal, which I have heard from a handful of council members. I don't think that's a terrible idea. Potentially, you may want to ease into that a little bit and take a few of those dollars and present them in 2023 and saying, here's where we're going. In 2023, we may not be asking for it in 2022. That may help you in your large dollar amount this year. The one thing I want to mention, and I brought this up to Kevin, 2 weekends in a row, I was at 2 different places where one was a ballpark where they had 0 trees and people were miserable. And about 300 yards away, they had this, for whatever reason, they had this line of trees, like almost like an orchard, that they had purposely put there. You could tell that they put it there with a nice berm there. And people were choosing to sit 300 yards away from this baseball field because it was too hot to be in the sun, and choosing to sit on this berm with these trees. And the very next weekend, we were at another location that was not designed to have people sitting on it, but people, again, were choosing to sit on these berms, which is just a hill, grassy hill, with this tree line on it. And that was in place just as runoff from what they had as this central walkway. And when we're talking about picnic tables and we're talking about grilling stations or benches, I'd really like us to start looking at ways that we can create spaces within the park that people want to be that are not necessarily a bench. That is just, where do you want to sit? My kids and I, on a regular basis, would ride our bikes down to Memorial Park and sit on the little hillside next to Field 3, which is exactly that. And it's exactly what these other 2 spaces are reminding me of, is that here's this tree line that was put there as drainage, essentially, but there's this hill, and it's just a natural place for people to sit. And I'd like to see us start looking at maybe some dirt work that we could potentially do. And one of the things that came to mind was that we had some people make some comments about the YMCA using that soccer field, which is not a soccer field, at JC's Park, and how there needs to be some dirt work done there. And my comment to that was, the YMCA chose to use a field that we had not prepared to be used. And so there's maybe some potential there for creating of spaces of that sort of kind. So I just wanted to mention that when we talk about benches and picnic tables. Seating to me is becoming an issue in that I don't think people really necessarily want a picnic table. I think they want a place to be. I think they want a place to sit with their family. I think they want a place to sit with the people that they're with. And if that's a crescent bench or something along those lines, could be cool. But I think the idea of putting them in there and having that within your dollar amount is great. And I'd love to see us start working towards that in our plan. But again, the upgrades all parks, I think you can get support on that. I just think that maybe presenting it as a lower dollar amount for 1 year, kind of like we did last year with the 75,000, was it not?
No, that was starting this year. In 2022, that's the first year that we.
But we showed it. We skipped a year and showed it as being next year, not this year.
It's
Didn't we?
2022, yeah.
Yeah, but we showed it in 2020 as being in 2022.
Correct,
we're
and that's
planning
that's where these upgrades came from.
Yep,
Was that
and
75,000 that we've shown?
Yep, but now it's jumped from 75 to now 116,000. But anyways, that's just my remarks on that. The resurfacing of parking lots, you know how I feel about parking lots. But my question about, and this is 2023, but my question about the 250,000 is that we now have a parking commission, a parking that deals with parking lots. And as far as I know, this hasn't come before them.
Oh, we've talked about it.
You have talked about it?
Absolutely. The parking commission is unanimous on the mindset that the city should not own surface parking lots in general.
Okay.
Because of the cost of ownership.
So, just as a heads up, that group is going to come back and tell you that you should not spend $250,000 on a new parking lot. So just a heads up on that. That's 2023. The other thing that I had a remark on, there was one more, and I apologize now. I'm missing my place. I'm just curious about Kiwanis and the reason for doing 3 separate projects at Kiwanis at the same time. Was it just putting a little love to that park, or is it just like what?
They all
it?
need. They're probably
In general,
the most need.
they're in the most need.
Okay.
The doors are rusted through at the bottom. There's literally no paint left whatsoever. I mean, they got on the list because we felt they were the worst out of, when we did the park evaluations, we looked through everything and said, okay, what is the absolute worst? And Kiwanis was what we had talked about. Right or wrong, that's how it got there.
Yeah, and that was just my one observation on that, was just that it's a high dollar amount on 3 items that are very similar. But if that's the case, then making sure that it's in there is probably a good idea. I just, somewhere along the lines, in looking at this, that 600,000 is gonna have to come down. And I'm just gonna be honest with you.
Well, I'm gonna lean on the council to ask where they want it out, period.
Well, and that's fine, and that's completely fine. However, I just want to make sure that as we're presenting this right now, that if you do that, it could just be a washing of things out more years, but it could also be that some of these things just get flat out rejected. And
Well, that'll be the decision of the council. The task of the park board is to maintain what we've got to a level that meets our basic scope of work. This is what it takes to do that. If the city council wants to modify that, they can give us direction and tell us where they'd like for that to go. But this, to me, is the baseline to maintain what we have. Unfortunately, our city council has been trained into a pretty long past of under-maintaining what we've got. We've earned ourselves this position. We've earned ourselves where we are. This is what it takes to correct it, to choose to correct it or to not choose to correct it.
well, and just to be fair, and I just want to be upfront because this is my job in this room, is to make sure that we have this discussion now before it goes to them. You're going to get resistance on 600,000, and it's not that there's just a substantial jump. It's that this is a year-to-year double jump essentially from where you've been, and we do spend a ton of money on our parks. Most of that goes to the other side of things, which is operations. But we do spend a ton of money on our parks. And I just want to make sure that you guys are aware that if you present 600,000, there's going to be that moment where it's going to come back to you. And I would say that there's going to be probably at least a $200,000 ask for reduction.
How do you know that?
I don't know that, but my job, again, is to sit in this room and that room and give you a feel for what you think, or what I believe those conversations are going to be.
How do you know what those conversations are going to be?
I don't know what those conversations, first of all, let's not get contention or have any type of butting heads here. This isn't, my position is not to tell you that you can't present this. It's just to make sure that when you do present it, that the next round of things that comes back, you're prepared for what you may need to look at for reductions. And I can't say that that's for sure going to happen, but I do know that there was resistance to our jump last year. And we talked about that. There was resistance to it. And there will be further resistance this year. Now, whether or not that means that they're going to come back and say no, I can't say that.
To me, I think it's good to know that you think that this is how it might go. So that helps prepare, help us to be more prepared in going before them. But that doesn't mean that we can't and shouldn't continue to press that, this is really what we see is needed if we want our parks to be what they should be. Otherwise, in a couple, 3, 4 years, we're gonna, instead of being 600,000, we're gonna need 750,000 to try to catch back up again where we're falling off. And the other part of that to me is then let's look at where we can enhance our parks to create finances to help support the funds for them. But even that takes money to do that. You know what I mean? And we gotta spend it to earn it. And I think we have to be good at looking at that and saying, where can we start creating some financial buckets for our own pockets, if you will. But and just because the city council might not like it doesn't mean that we shouldn't still, if we feel that this is necessary, that we shouldn't still push for it. But having that input from you, I think, is valuable. That if you think that there might be some pushback, that great, we know that, and we just be that much more prepared to look at these items and say, hey, this is what's needed.
Yeah, so just to give you guys some philosophy as to where my feelings on government are, in that my plan is not to be involved in government for the rest of my life. At some point, I want to move on to other ventures. And that could be tomorrow, that could be, it's not gonna be tomorrow, but that could be, 15 years, it could be 5 years, it could be 2 years. I personally like to have an uplifting of people that are willing to do the work, and we talk about that all the time. And we have an active park board right now. We have a park board that has taken a different stance than where we've been in years, in that we're being very proactive in coming up with this stuff. What I don't want to see happen is frustration mount as we move, because you feel like you're being smacked down from the top, which can very well happen. And so my comments on that are not meant to say, don't do it. My comments are simply to say that while we're looking at this stuff and while we're coming up with these ideas, it's great to want things, but at some point there's going to be that dad that comes in the room and says, shut the lights off. You know, and I want to make sure that we're just having those open conversations now, because frustration does mount very quickly. And I don't want that to happen from this group. I think that this group is headed in a very positive direction. I think that this is the best budget that I've seen come out of the park board in the entire time that I've been involved with it. And that's saying a lot, because I thought, yes, last year's was pretty good. This is really is comprehensive and actually has what we need in it. That's the biggest thing. But I just want to make sure that we're aware that as we're moving forward, I understand the desire to say, like, we're just going to put it in front of them and tell them that's what we need. But you got to understand also, though, that a lot of those people in that room are fiscally conservative. And a lot of those people's reaction is very reactionary to money. And so I just want to make sure that we're being aware that as we're presenting this, anytime we can start looking at, like, okay, is there something we can soften any type of blow? It's always best to be upfront with that early, so that when the tide comes and when we get to those smacking on the head type moments, it's not that we're at an impasse. It's that it's something that we can overcome. So that's the only reason I'm saying that, is that potentially just off the earmark of me looking at this and viewing what I saw, just be prepared for that potential of there being a substantial chunk being asked to take off that.
Very good, thank you. All right, so we'll continue the conversation on any changes to 2022. I guess what we're trying to hone it down to here, guys.
I had a couple things. I'm not sure if they fit with 2022 or with just other maintenance budgets. In Gregory Park, I saw them putting some grass seed down this afternoon, but there's no gutters on the warming house, and so it tends to wash everything out. And then if you need to get to the warming house in the winter, you're taking your life in your hands on the ice. I don't know if there's some kind of drainage that would be worthwhile to make it a little bit more usable for folks. I know that's where people sit for music in the park too, and so you just have this dirt field, which is where you can really see the bandstand. So I don't know if that fits for next year, if that's something we need to look at farther out.
As far as just gutters on the building or just better drainage? Yeah, that's another one of those operational maintenance things that if we're getting some feedback from the public, that's something that can fit into our operational budget that we have money set aside each year to do that. So, along with the grass, we're addressing that actually within the next couple of weeks. Once we get into some cooler temps, we're going to try to get topsoil and grass planted around the warming house. So,
oh, cool. Yeah, it seemed like a losing effort with just water running off there. But and then the other thing I had was for Triangle Park. I saw, it was before I joined the council, but the playground structure is ADA accessible, but there's not actually a way for folks to get into the park. I know we have the ADA budget, but it felt like if we have a budget for the playground, maybe upping that a little bit to have curb cuts and the, what you call them, the truncated domes for folks to access.
Yep, yeah, that's something that would come most likely with a future street project. We could certainly do a joint project between our, having curb cut would be probably the number one thing, but then having sidewalks so that at some point is, also something that we should consider, because if you don't have a place for people to walk to the park, then what's the point in making a park ADA accessible? So, yeah, it's all things to consider. That's one of those joint efforts, I think, that when we do a street project in that area. I think they missed the boat when they did Bluff, but that's past my time, so.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Shea. All right, guys.
So are we gonna reach out to, somebody for that gazebo in Kiwanis? Was it the Lions? Or whoever had that little symbol up there, to see if they could help us?
Was the Lions, I believe.
Would that be helpful to say, like, they're gonna give us, maybe they'll pay for it, I don't know. Is it the pavilion or the gazebo?
It's the pavilion.
Okay, I mean, I don't know if they have 20,000 sitting
They
around.
don't have they have the gazebo kind of off the back of
Isn't it the one that's kind of falling apart? Yeah,
over by the trail entrance.
yep. So, I mean, that's the pavilion you have on here for 20?
That's the
Or the
gazebo,
Okay,
the freestanding one.
so maybe they have $10,000 sitting in their budget. I know it's not gonna bring it down to less than, but that's 10,000 we could save.
Yeah.
And now we're getting this donated. How do we go about asking them if they'd be interested in helping us with that?
We'd ask staff to reach out and see if we can make a connection.
I don't know. I mean, I know it's 10 in a huge budget, but that would be a way to speak to that. I don't know.
Okay. Is that something is that something staff can help out, just reach out on?
Yeah, I mean, I
to
think-
that organization? I'm pretty sure it's Lions that's on both of them, if I remember right.
Yeah, I don't remember. Oh, yeah.
Oh, Kiwanis, okay,
Yeah, it's just the Kiwanis.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
I can see this.
They help with a lot of stuff.
Right, yeah.
They donate
Yeah.
money for materials for the
Oh, sorry.
pier and stuff.
Yeah. So maybe they want a brand new pavilion, too.
They helped with one. They did the work too.
Oh, wow.
So do you need us,
Yeah, we just need to decide if we want to make any changes to this budget at this point, especially for 2022. For the sake of saving time or being respectful of everyone's time, I think we should narrow the conversation to 2022. That's the most critical part here. And we highlighted the big dollar items, the Memorial Park, Kiwanis, and JC's Playground. That's where our big numbers are.
And as a non-board member, council member, that seems to make perfect sense. The three of our best parks, or biggest parks in town, need certain upgrades. So that's over $300,000 just for those three parks.
Right. But again, maybe this conversation is more suited for pending feedback.
Yeah, maybe what we need to do is go through here and by our next board meeting, because we have till September, right?
We need to be able to, what's that? It is September 1st. So the timing, once again, Mr. Sandy, can you just hit us?
I think that we're gonna be presenting at the budget workshop at the end of August. So this one is important tonight, and then operation budget for the August 10th meeting, to look at that. And it's very similar to what we've seen in previous years, so there's not much that's changed there.
Do we identify some items that if we run into what we might run into, that we slide out?
Parking lot resurfacing, I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
And I looked at that too.
I mean, we have a parking lot that's massive. It's not, I don't know, it's excessive, and we're forced to maintain it now that we have it. You know, that's part of this. Do we reduce size? Do we push it off?
Demo it.
Demo it, return it back to, you know, I don't know. It's a large dollar amount item.
We were gifted a parking lot in terrible shape. that needs replacement the day we owned it.
And then the offer they made to buy it, but they wanted 300,000, offered 280, like a nice offer. Offered 28,000, so you have to tell them counter. It makes zero sense to me, but.
Even, I'm looking at parking lot surfacing, this is 2023, but for Buffalo Hills, do you create the space for the parking and leave it like J.C.'s? And worry about the pavement down the road, you know what I mean? Because in reality, there's no space, people are parking in grass. Right. And.
Or crushed granite.
This is 23, but there's some areas that we can spread it out a little bit with some of those costs. But
Why does it have to be resurfaced? Why can't we just demolish it and make it dirt? Is that like sandy? I don't know. Is it like messy then, or?
Are you talking about,
Sorry, Memorial.
Dust, I
Memorial?
mean, it comes down
Yeah.
to.
I'd love to demo 3/4 of it and turn it into grass.
Yeah. I mean,
We could definitely shrink it up. I mean, that's in the cards. What do you put there besides big green open space right now? I don't know, but
green space.
you
is
definitely
always
don't need
good.
that. I mean, Katie, how full is that parking lot generally?
Half.
On a really, really busy day, I'd say it's 2/3 used.
But because it's there, they don't use the center one either.
Yeah, and then you cut it in half and expect some people to use the center one or park on
Right.
O Street or whatever. We've had comments about people not parking on it's Q Street, sorry. Q Street and cars speeding down that street, which I have my own thoughts on that, but.
Aren't we expecting people, I mean, more people are gonna go to that park, but that is street parking. Isn't that what we talked about? That people can park on the street?
That
So-
street's perfectly wide enough, and in fact,
Yeah.
it helps with perceived speed issues.
And there's a lot of parking that's not used in the other parking lot.
So if you cut it in half and then,
Plan on just redesigning that area to half that size.
Horseshoe pits.
yeah. Horseshoe pits, hey guys, that's where we get them in there. That's like one of my things that I wanted in the park, just randomly. No, it's kind of a joke.
Yeah, that's something
No,
we can
it's in
think
there.
about.
It's actually in the budget.
Oh, it is. in
Yeah,
the-
it's in the budget.
Yeah, I know one item that, we haven't talked about yet is all of the parking lot maintenance and resurfacing of the existing stuff that we have that's in yellow on this sheet. That's something that I was kind of looking for direction on if you guys want stuff paved more in the future, then what is it, where is it? I haven't put any costs in there because we have a lot of pavement that needs maintenance, and we have a lot of gravel that if the park board wants to move in a direction of paving some of these things, when does that happen? What does that look like?
How
Dodge
much
Park?
maintenance do we spend on gravel parking lot, J.C.'s?
I mean, we grade it probably twice a year. I mean, gravel is much easier to maintain long-term. As soon as you pave something, it's a liability, and that's
So like Buffalo
And
is a
that's-
great example to me, yeah.
It's what a lot of townships are dealing with and cities, and, as soon as you pave something, it's a long-term liability, and 20 years down the road, when you have to resurface it and the money's not there, where does it come from?
And just so everyone knows, Buffalo, the resurfacing of Buffalo was already in our budget, it was already set in our budget. And
that one
had
was.
been for quite some time.
Yeah.
So it just stayed.
I think you had mentioned at our last meeting that it's difficult to plow some of the gravel lots. Is that a factor we should think about when?
It's just an ease, keeping ice control and things, because the ice adheres more to gravel, and you can't get it down to bare surface, and then when sun does come out and melts things, it doesn't melt as fast. So you do have more ice buildup on gravel. It's just a thing that you deal with. It adheres because there's more surface area, and we still plow them. It's as easy to plow them, but you just have more buildup of that kind of stuff because you can't scrape them hard, put that down pressure down to get the ice off. You're taking half the gravel with it. So that's a lot of the issue that comes with gravel and dust. I mean, that's something that we do get complaints about is dust control. You have parks with gravel parking lots and cars coming in and out, and you're sitting there watching a ball game and getting pummeled with dust, so. Being strategic, I would say, would be the best way to go with where you, because it is a long-term liability.
So do we leave it stand and then just be prepared for our next meeting? Each of us come prepared and say, these are some areas I think we could, if need be?
That's what I think. I mean, in all honesty, if the mayor's prediction comes to fruition, most of this is meaningless work anyways.
Yeah. And hopefully not. I mean, hopefully
Right.
it's not, and hopefully it's.
I hope that minds aren't made up before even hearing the presentation.
So your thought is to just hold off and you go for the 600,000 we're looking for and then
Yes, and that
divide
we
it
as
half.
individuals come to our next meeting and hash out where, if we gotta knock something off, where it's best served to.
After the presentation, come back and, you know, they
Right.
give us
In a lot of ways, we're doing this
$400,000 number,
backwards.
then-
In many ways, we should be asking what the city council is willing to give us for next year, and then we'll make our budget based on that.
That's a very,
Much
that's,
like we do with Memorial Park?
it's a reaction thing, you know, it's, what is that dollar amount that they're expecting, and then we
Right.
can formulate a budget around that. It's
Right.
not the cart before the horse, it's opposite, and what are they comfortable spending?
Either way, I think we did the right work here, guys. We were asked to evaluate, we were asked to do our job. This represents us doing our job. I told them last year when we sat in that meeting that we would come back with a budget that was forward-thinking and understood the cost of ownership of this empire. This is it. So,
Yeah, and I think you guys did a fantastic job,
Correct.
and here's the other part of that, it's a first draft.
right.
And how many times do first drafts make it through? If we just have to tweak it, then we have to tweak it, and, you know, that doesn't mean that we think there's gonna be less money needed, we just tweak it in how, we just get creative and find other ways to do stuff.
We'll get it.
We'll
Adapt and overcome.
make it work.
There's room to move it, I mean,
Yeah.
look at those future years, there's,
So in an effort of saving time, I'm just going to ask if anyone would like to bring forward a proposed a change to the 2022. If not, we'll present it as is and
I don't.
hope for the best. Very good. Mr. Shipe? Mr. Bedell?
My only comment is, again, this is the most time that's been spent on a budget in an appropriate time frame that I've seen. And that makes it much easier when it comes to the time for them to make those decisions as well. I think when the questions started arising a few years ago, it was, you know, why are we approving this in one meeting as opposed to presenting it and then going through it as you have? So again, I'm thrilled with the movement that's happening from this group.
Yeah.
No action needed. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, the only thing I'd say is one of the reasons I joined the committee is, you know, even my dog didn't want to go to Triangle Park. We live like a block away. And to see, right, the all park maintenance for the weed and feed, the garbage cans, right, it's really exciting to see a path forward where everything is maintained, even if it's not the crown jewel park of the system. So it's fantastic.
Awesome. You don't need an action on this then, Mr. Sandy, correct?
no, we'll just move forward as is and get some feedback, I guess.
Very good. Thank you, everyone, for working on this as well as looking at it. We're going to continue on to public forum. I'm going to open the public forum at 6:18. If anyone's here to speak, if not, no one online. Can't even do that anymore, I believe, right? And we will close the public forum at 6.
Let me go look, hang on one second. Oh, Sean, let me make sure.
Nope.
No, I took over, I told Lori she'd go home. I don't want to sit here.
Executive.
Oh, let me see.
Yeah.
I should say that for the public to hear. I didn't see that campground number until just now, the 2021 campground number.
Oh, how much we made, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's awesome.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public forum at 6:18 and continue on to the city engineer report. Are you ready, Mr. Sandy?
Yeah, go ahead, Katie.
Katie, please, we'll go to our rec coordinator.
Thank you. I'll try and keep it very quick. We've opened registration for adult fall sports. So that's on Mondays, it's a lower men's, Tuesdays, adult kickball, Wednesdays, upper men's, and then Thursdays, co-ed softball. So we're already full actually for co-ed softball, and it's been a week. So that's going well. And then we'll have about a week or so in between summer league ending and fall starting. So I'd like to start doing some recognition of some of the people that purchased banners, just getting them some recognition on our social media, and then also explaining the program and how it works and how it benefits. That being said, we did get the fences up in between the fields, so that's all new in between the fields, so that's awesome. No more curling fences. That's just a prime example of that, the banner money going to good use towards the fields. As far as community ed and YMCA update, all of their programming is done. To be determined, a meeting I'm sure will be scheduled between ourselves, the YMCA, and community ed, and how that went, and then probably coming back to you guys explaining, like the numbers, where we'd like to go next year, any changes, and then also the YMCA is actually looking to do some fall sports, so that's also in the works at JC's Park probably. BBBA update, they concluded their last facilitation of the tournaments, so I didn't hear any complaints, so I think all went well. Troy, any additional thoughts real quick?
We're gonna meet with Myas.
Okay.
And talking with their director at the end of the tournament. We unfortunately had teams, and every one of our teams was in a state tournament somewhere. So our volunteer capacity was down. I basically I probably put on 300 miles that weekend, running back and forth between parks and just making sure everything. But there's some things that we'll work with Myas. They want to work with us, and basically turn this into a community item for our hotels and our resorts, and push more of this onto their lap as far as some fees or some fundraising type stuff. We developed a tournament committee that will start working actually next month for next year, so that we're well on top of all this stuff. And so that was a big thing with all these tournaments this year. It just all came quick, and but park staff phenomenal. KDU, Troy Harris, your concession people, Paul, and we definitely, Steve and I would definitely like to meet with you guys and talk about this last year and future plans. So
Good.
You guys did a great job.
Awesome.
Tournaments went really well. Got a lot of good feedback.
Great.
And people want to come here. These things are going to be big. They're going to be bigger than they ever were. As long as we can all, they're going to be 32 team type stuff. It's going to be a lot of money brought into the community. So thanks. Great job.
All right, I guess next on the list is campground update. The numbers are right in front of you. This is a record year. It's going to be a record year. So just some numbers to put to some forward-thinking potential. We're making quite a bit of money. Kim's been extremely busy, and how popular camping's getting. Maybe that's something we look into in the future for park planning. So just wanted to put those in front of you. Kim brought that to our attention earlier this week. So that's all I have.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Sandy.
All right, so obviously tonight we had our capital budget workshop. Sounds like we're moving forward with what we presented there. The next meeting that we'll have is actually on August 10th. We decided on that back at our last design standard meeting workshop. So that will be August 10th at 4 right here. We'll be with Widseth for the first hour, hour and a half, and then we'll have a quick view of the operational budget like we have in the past. Next thing, park design standards, kind of went over that August 10th, 4 to 6. Splash pad update. So we've been working, Chris and I have been working with Emily quite intently lately. Kind of an update, they've actually raised about $108,000 now. So they have some money to spend on some of the amenities around the splash pad. Obviously, we have to purchase the donor items like picnic tables and benches and some of the landscaping and the plaques and things that go up for the donors that donated so much money. But I think, the way it's looking, that she's going to have some money to kind of dream some nicer amenities around the splash pad to really recognize what the donors gave with that $108,000 plus the $100,000 match. So the splash pad itself about $194,000. So that leaves us right in that $14,000 to $16,000 range. I think we got another donation today. Check handed in at City Hall. So they just keep coming in, which is a very, very good thing. We're working with her to get the plaques made and the benches ordered and all that. So it's coming together. As you can see out in the park, it's coming together too, looking really nice. So, and as I've done in the past, just updating the park board on what our maintenance crews have been up to. This summer has been the summer of weeds. There's not much that's growing except for weeds. So spraying a lot of weeds. It's both in our street department and parks department, keeping control of everything, and the boulevards and in the parks just seems like a nonstop task this year. So the grass hasn't had an opportunity to kind of come through. They've been doing a lot of just maintenance things. I was talking to the chair here before the meeting. This last budget cycle, Tony had included some money for shingling projects and large tree replacements. Well, we were able to do a majority of the large tree replacement or large tree things ourselves with our street department, and so we have in excess. It's a budget right now that we're looking at picking off some of these low-hanging fruit projects with that budget money we have allocated on some shingling projects at Buffalo Hills. Maybe Mills, the Mills concession stand, re-roofing and re-siding that. Just some projects that have been kind of out there that need to get done to keep things watertight. We're going to be working on those here with that money that Tony set aside for that. So, but the maintenance guys have been awesome this summer. They've been taking the initiative and doing a lot of great things. Being very responsive to complaints. A good example was we got some credit for J.C.'s Park. The water fountain was broken over there. YMCA running their programs, kids running around looking for water. I told Troy about it. We ordered a fountain right away, and he got it put in the next week. And we got some credit from the city council because that's where the issue actually came from. So, being very responsive, they've been just great this summer. With the low amount of rain we've had, it's been kind of a difficult summer to keep things looking nice. And so, yeah, that's really all I had.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Sandy. We don't actually have this on our agenda, but does any comments from the park board? Anybody have anything they want to add?
Are we still being taped right now?
Yes.
I'll wait then.
With that, I'll be definitely looking for a motion to adjourn. Then thank you, everyone, staff, everything that you guys are doing this summer. It's going great. Really appreciate it, Katie, Paul, what you're doing over there, Chris, everyone. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Motion to adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn and a second by Shipe. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same